The health tech ecosystem needs more clinical entrepreneurs. Doctors, nurses, allied health providers, those on the front line that see the problems firsthand and they know what needs to happen to fix them. Some clinicians feel powerless when it comes to inefficiencies, poor patient outcomes, and clunky processes. Others take charge and want to make an impact. Over the past year or so, I've been lucky enough to be one of the co-facilitators for the Australian Clinical Entrepreneurs Program, AUSCEP. We recently wrapped up Cohort 2 of the AUSCEP program, and I had the opportunity to speak to 3 participants to understand what they're passionate about and learn more about their entrepreneurial journeys in health tech. Today I'm joined by Whitney Luxford from Fit to Fly, Amy Wallis from Selsus, and Fiona Brownfoot from Carly. And in this episode, we talk about how frontline clinicians can make that leap to pursue a more entrepreneurial pathway, overcoming imposter syndrome when it comes to exploring a new venture, and why clinicians are best placed to identify the biggest problems in healthcare to solve. Collaboration starts with a conversation, Team Health Tech. Let's make it happen.
Welcome to Talking HealthTech, featuring content and community about technology and healthcare. We acknowledge the traditional owners of lands these conversations were recorded and pay respect to elders past and present.
Whitney, Amy, Fiona, how are you?
Good, thanks.
It's good to have you on this session today of the Talking HealthTech podcast so that we can reflect on your own experiences as clinical entrepreneurs coming off the back of Cohort 2 of the AUSCEP program. I'll give you each an opportunity to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about what you do. Whitney, let's start with you.
Hey, Pete. Nice to be with you today. So I'm Whitney Luxford. I am a paramedic who specialised in aviation medicine and have worked in Australia's largest airline medical departments for the last 20 plus years. And I have built Fit to Fly, which is a digital health program to automate and have an immediate decision-making for airline medical clearances, which is the current manual paper-based form system. Every airline has their own forms. If you're flying on multiple carriers, which generally do, leaving Australia to Europe or the States, you need multiple forms completed by your clinician. So it takes a lot of time. There's lots of errors, 50% error rate. And so we plan to have that information in a platform that provides you with an approval, meeting the criteria that's built in the back end, and then you are fit to fly.
Amazing. I'm keen to dive into that problem a little bit more because I know firsthand from behind the scenes how logistically challenged it is to manage that process with bits of paper, but also from the customer's point of view or the patient's point of view, how confusing that can be. So it seems like a really good problem to solve. Amy, what about yourself?
Yeah, thanks for having me as well. So I am an occupational therapist and co-founder of Selsus, and my co-founder, Andrew Smith, also an occupational therapist based in Melbourne, and I are looking at the big problem that we've got within the cancer world. What we're seeing is that our medical system is so fantastic at treating, providing clear pathways for people during that acute sort of phase of cancer. But then once that is sort of over, people are really thrown out into their own world to navigate the system or navigate nothing in terms of generic health care or, being given no guidance how to live well post-cancer. So we're working towards a telehealth service, which we've been sort of doing for a while, but we're adding on the digital platform to help people to really reclaim and rebuild their lives and so they can empower themselves and to live well. So it's a little bit of sort of self-management and treatment in terms of survivorship care.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, putting that power back in the hands of the person who needs it most. That's super important. And Fiona.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Pete. It's such a pleasure to be here with Whitney and Amy today. So my name is Fiona Brownfoot. I'm a clinician scientist, so an obstetrician, and I'm also a founder of Carly Healthcare, which is a new way to monitor women during their pregnancy and also in labour. So current monitoring is performed in hospital, and it's really clinician intensive, whereby a midwife or obstetrician needs to place the monitor directly over the baby's heartbeat. Otherwise, there's loss of signal. And we've developed a technology that's wearable. So the patient can place it on their abdomen and it can pick up that baby's heartbeat really, anywhere, anytime, making fetal monitoring far more accessible for pregnant women at high risk during their pregnancy.
Excellent. Look, it's interesting just hearing the different challenges you're all addressing. And it sounds like they're all geared around problems that you kind of face firsthand in your own experiences in trying to manage this for patients or customers or someone else within the healthcare ecosystem. And I think about the different ways that you're kind of looking to utilize technology and kind of, bridge that gap between, I guess, working on the front line as a clinician to then running a digital health or a health tech company. And I imagine you didn't get into doing this health tech thing to become a billionaire, because there's probably other ways to earn lots of money. It seems to be that passion towards solving some of those problems. So I'd love to dive into each of those problems a little bit more and understand why you think that the technology or the way that you're kind of structuring this is really going to have a meaningful impact. So, Whitney, back to you. On the Fit to Fly side, it's, I know that if from outside you wouldn't realize how much paper is involved in doing some of these clearances in 2024.
No, and it's so true, Pete, because everybody sees airlines with these beautiful, shiny, high-tech airplanes flying around the world, breaking records of, distance that they can travel. You've got beautiful branding of airlines. You've got great interface generally with their booking systems, their apps, your check-in, etc. So everyone just assumes that everything from end to end in an airline is so high tech. It couldn't be further from the truth. So in the back end, look at an airline like, Qantas, for example, 100 years in Australia, operating internationally as well. But, they've been around for a long time. So there's a lot of legacy systems, and people just keep doing things the way they've been doing them because there's not been really an opportunity to challenge or change. And I think, me sitting there for the better part of 20 plus years on call a week at a time doing medical clearances, and they get about 20,000 a year, actually made me think every time towards the end of that time was, this has to be done better. We are flying airplanes 22 hours nonstop. Why can't we process a medical clearance with some logic so that it doesn't take doctors and other clinicians? Really, it's not why do we have to have this intensive time focus on doing this? And we're doing them 24/7 because the operation's 24/7. People need to travel, and they need their clearances done so they can travel safely.
And tell me a little bit more about so the way that it's done now compared to what you've built. What's that kind of delta, or how does that kind of change from the end user's perspective, be it the end user from the customer side or from a clinician side or the airline?
Yeah, so let's just look at a quick journey for a customer. You find out you need a medical clearance from the airline. Might be through your doctor, it might be via the hospital. You have to go to the airline's website, print the form, multiple airlines, print multiple forms, make an appointment, see your GP, get the GP to fill out multiple forms. Some forms are 1 page, some are 7 pages. So add that up. It's definitely a long consult, probably longer. And then because it's paper-based, doctors can pick and choose what questions they answer. And unfortunately, the underpinning knowledge of aviation medicine broadly across doctors is not very well understood. It's no different to, Fiona in obstetrics. Not every GP understands every aspect of obstetrics, etc. It's exactly the same with aviation medicine. You then submit that once it's completed to the airline. The airline customer service team review it. If you're lucky enough to have a medical team, it'll go to the medical team to be reviewed. They'll check it against the guidelines. Oh my gosh, the doctor forgot to fill out some of the questions, send it back to the doctor, and we go back and forth. So approval generally takes sort of 48 hours to 7 days. There's a lot of people that can't wait that time to get on a plane to travel to see a dying relative or for medical treatment, or just to have a holiday because, 7 days into the window of your annual leave, not ideal. So our system will be instantly answer the questions. They're responsive questions. They have clinical logic behind that's built with the medical guidelines that are in place. And you will only get asked the questions relative to the condition. So that saves time. But we will collect all that information. So if you get to the end and it meets all the requirements, you've got a good to go, you get a green and you can travel straight away, as opposed to waiting that back and forth. Now, What if it doesn't meet the requirements? We think about 80% will meet the requirements through the system. With that 20%, that'll be escalated straight to the medical department of the airline, and they'll be able to review it and be able to see all the questions end to end and know what it is that's kind of the roadblocker. And it might just be a day or two extra that you've got to wait before you're safe to travel. So it's automating it and getting an answer pretty much straight away.
Yeah, amazing. Look, I can see how that makes a material
positive impact on for all the different stakeholders that are involved. So in theory, that makes so much sense. So it's really exciting to see you tackling that head on. And then if I'm switching gears, Amy, into your space, tell me a little bit more about that problem to be solved.
Sure. So Andrew and I've worked for a combined probably 45 years, showing our age there, in the cancer space. You know, we really dedicated our careers to cancer survivorship. And cancer survivorship's now defined as anybody literally post a diagnosis. So it used to traditionally be post, remission. So that's changed. So that has opened up a lot of sort of issues in terms of people really starting to self-manage their care and knowing where to turn to for care. And I guess through our clinical research, our anecdotal research, and also the work we've done with clients over the years, we've kept coming back to the issue of what do I do now once I've sort of, I'm off in the wilderness to live my life. And my life's very, very different to yours. So very tailored care is a real issue. So we've really found that access to care is an issue, particularly for people living rurally and remote. Access to care for people in general, in terms of people with cancer are often immunocompromised. So actually accessing and getting and feeling safe to survivorship care is an issue in terms of access that way for them. Then you layer it with the issue of trained experts in getting you back to living well post, that stage of care. And there really is a real lack of training and education out there. So Andrew and I have spent the last probably 7-8 years also working in that mentoring and education space for allied health professionals to try and build that network and to try and get some, answers there. But there's a massive gap still there. And so from that access to good care in terms of geographical, in terms of cost, in terms of expert training, they're the major, really huge issues that people face. And then you layer it with the fact that it's generally what is available is generic care. So, how I live my life can be really different to you. I might be returning to work post-cancer, and therefore, my issues of living with fatigue and with memory and processing issues are really kind of a different issue to maybe, a stay-at-home mum who's still using some of those, obviously those memory and processing skills and may also suffer from fatigue. But it's a really different way that you kind of need to deal with those things and how that impact you. So, that generic care is a major issue. And so is a lot of people when they're discharged, they'll often be given mass kind of, here, go and look on this site on the internet. And then people kind of get lost in this, oh my gosh, what's evidence-based, what's actually available, and what's really sort of purposeful for myself. So that is another major issue. So there's kind of a few things that led us to that. How can we help people to navigate the system, but navigate it well with tailored care and from experts, which is always a little bit lacking in that part of cancer. Yeah,
totally. I mean, how lucky we are to live in a country that has, such good quality care
Absolutely.
Available, but it can be heartbreaking to see many not be able to access that because of the complications and the that navigating that process, as you say, to access it is really hard.
Yeah.
So to be able to put some structure behind that and community and things
Absolutely.
is
and it's
critical.
And I think it's also about building people's confidence to be able to know where to go and then manage themselves and really be able to do that themselves is such a huge shift for the whole healthcare system as well, because the cost of cancer, as people progress through that longer term sort of survivorship is also a major issue in the country, because we've got, 1.4 million cancer survivors currently in Australia. And that has different types of financial burdens as well for the person and society.
Yeah, the whole package, right? And Fiona, in the utilising some remote patient monitoring and that space, tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So 1 in 130 pregnancies really devastatingly ends in stillbirth. And in fact, now around 60% of our obstetric population are classified high risk. So they are patients at risk of stillbirth. And this is because, we've now got an ageing obstetric population, as well as this then leads to an increased risk of, diabetes, high blood pressure in pregnancy. It can be smaller babies, so growth restriction as well as this is coupled by knowing that around 30% in America anyway of obstetric patients live within a remote setting. So that is what they call a maternity care desert, where there isn't an obstetrician within that county. And I believe rates within Australia are very similar to that. So knowing that there's this ageing population, population at increased risk of stillbirth, and this lack of obstetric care has really led to us looking at other ways to monitor patients, and developed a wearable technology whereby the mum's able to then place the sensor strip on herself in order to monitor that pregnancy via a telehealth setting, or indeed this is a technology that could be used in hospitals, allowing women to labour and be active in labour rather than being pinned to the bed because we can't pick up that baby's heartbeat. So it's a technology that could be used, both in the home and when it's required. So if the woman has reduced movements, or indeed some more complicated pregnancy needing increased monitoring, or indeed in the hospital environment, assisting women to labour in a way that is their preference.
Yeah, amazing. No, look, that's it's great to see the application on both sides there, putting the power in the patient's hands to be able to, or giving that freedom at least, and that problem of being in rural and remote areas is obviously going to be a huge issue in Australia. So I can only imagine that has a positive impact. Thinking about, you've got these tricky problems to solve that you've faced, throughout your clinical careers, and then, you however long ago it was, applied for the AUSCEP program, and I've been lucky enough to facilitate 2 cohorts of the Australian Clinical Entrepreneurs program now for New South Wales, and I'd love to understand a little bit more about that whole thought process and journey of kind of applying for the program and some of your experiences. And it might be interesting too, like what that progression of your idea might have been, because it's been cool in being part of the program to see a lot of clinicians at a lot of types of different clinicians solving different types of problems and at different stages of that journey as well. So, Whitney, from your side, representing from New South Wales, obviously the best state, but tell me a little bit about your AUSCEP journey.
Yeah, Pete, New South Wales, of course, the best.
Of course.
So I really, I've run other successful businesses and I've worked in large corporates. So from a business perspective, I've had, I think, a really strong business foundation already in my career. So for me, this was really about connections and networking, and also to just have other people who are kind of living that same experience that you are, regardless of where they are in their journey. One thing I did find astounding, really shocked me actually, was I know I got on that very first meet and greet, and this surgeon walked out in his full-on scrubs, and he was in the middle of some serious cardiothoracic surgery, and he just popped out and said, "Hi guys, I'm such and such, and I'm just in the middle of this, and I'm just going to say hi, and I've got to run back to my patient." And I thought, oh, I'm so in the wrong place. I really felt like imposter syndrome. I was like, I'm just solving such a boring problem, fixing a form for people to travel on holidays. But as the journey went on and I got to meet people and really, I've built some amazing friendships. But what I really found was, as a paramedic and venturing into aviation medicine, there was this real struggle that I had from an identity perspective that, I just wasn't the same as the doctors. But in this environment, it didn't matter. Like, no one sat there banging their chest saying, I'm a surgeon, I'm a doctor of this, I'm, a professor of that. We were all the same. We were all taking a similar journey on a similar road, all aiming to solve a problem that we had either lived or experienced or seen within our work environments, and to improve it for our patients and for healthcare generally. And I've really loved the ability to be with like-minded people. And I think being clinicians, regardless of what our backgrounds are, being able to work with people with that same healthcare perspective and mindset has, I think, been really invaluable. And that's my journey. I've loved it. It's been great.
Yeah, that's such a great point. And you're so right there in terms of that I guess, camaraderie or the community aspect of the program, regardless of what state you're in. Yeah. Amy, tell me a little bit about your experiences.
all the way from WA, the most remote over here. But that's actually been really good for us because my business partner's over in Victoria. So we've had a really great connection in the sense that he'll attend over in Melbourne and I'll be over obviously in Perth. And so some of the discussions that we have can be quite different. So at the end of each pit stop, we've gotten together and we've had a chat and we've said, this is what our group said, that's what your group said. And it's been really great learning for us in seeing those different perspectives and seeing different people at different stages and still being able to connect. I think like Whitney said, with that mindset, the similar mindset and the similar kind of aims and goals to help in terms of better healthcare. So for us, it's been about connecting with similar-minded people, but also seeing some different connections happening over across the states. And I guess that leads into the mentoring, which for us has been absolutely fantastic from a business point of view, because we've both run successful clinical or clinics, I guess you'd call them, but not, that's not a health tech business, right? So for us, it's been a really huge learning curve, but being able to connect with people who know what they're doing has really helped us, but also solidified some of the stuff that we've gone, oh no, hang on, we do know some of this. So for us, that's kind of, been a real benefit.
Yeah. And Fiona, you like many others as well who participated in the program, still got jobs to do on a day-to-day and many kind of grappling with, do I reduce my clinical hours? If I reduce my clinical hours, I don't get paid. And also there's many other reasons why you would continue on clinical hours, but also there's only so many hours in the day. Yeah. There's a bit to weigh up in participating in a program that calls for, some regular webinars, but also a pit stop, basically once a month, bit of a juggle.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Pete. But I guess it was for the same purpose that Whitney and Amy have discussed, where I thought it was something really valuable that I needed to do. So, we kind of got to a point in our research, because we didn't even know if it was possible, right? So we kind of got to a point in our research where we're like, wow, this is actually working. This could make a big difference. And then it was kind of at that point we kind of celebrated for 24 hours and then we saw, this massive mountain of commercialization kind of ahead of us. And it was that realization that this is a skill set whereby, we need that mentorship and we need that community. I think if you're just toiling away by yourself, it becomes really quite a challenge. But then when you kind of get integrated in this community of like-minded people all working towards a similar purpose, yes, on very different concepts and projects, but all working towards, this pathway of getting something out to the patients, that was, really quite obvious that that's what we needed. And we needed that mentorship as well as that community to help foster that next step for us within Talking Healthcare. So it was really what drove me towards AUSCEP, and just the great community of clinicians as well as mentors. In particular for me, Richard has just been, absolutely awesome in kind of helping us navigate those next steps towards, a pivotal medtech device, and then looking at that commercialization strategy, not only in Australia, but indeed in the US, where, that's what the VCs want to see, has been, absolutely a game changer for us.
And I think about then, I think about some of the participants that I've engaged with, be it in the mentoring sessions or in the pit stops. We touched on already that quite all the clinicians, all the participants are at different stages of their journey, and some start their journey through the AUSCEP program or any kind of program like this where they have a particular idea in mind, and then they get to the end of it and either it's progressed significantly or it's progressed, or maybe nothing has happened, or sometimes they've made a call to say, well, this is not something I want to do, or maybe the idea's pivoted completely. And I think all of those are okay. And I think that, that's what I've liked about the AUSCEP program too, is that it's not so much about bringing in an idea to try and commercialize it no matter what the idea is. I felt like that there was a lot of time spent with clinicians to really understand what they want, and almost became a bit of like a personal development piece, as well as a piece that's going to help them with their own personal careers as well as the organisation. So from your sides too, did you feel that it was as much personal development as it was business development, Whitney?
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. I think I've, grown exponentially through this process. I think it's just, being with people who are aiming to do what you're doing, in terms of building a startup, building a business, whether it's, digital tech or health tech or med tech or whatever. But I think you just grow because you push yourself. To Fiona's point, when you're sitting here by yourself, it is lonely, and you don't have that impetus to kind of like push those boundaries. So many times I sit down, I've got to make that phone call, I've got to make that phone call, I've got to make a phone call, but you get so inspired and so invigorated by the different webinars, the accountability squads, the pit stops, that it keeps that momentum going. So yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with that.
There's some good advice there for anyone that's looking to take some, whether it be an entrepreneurial idea or anything, a significant life experience, I guess, or a decision that needs to be made. Being able to do that in a group or with people like you. What is it? A problem shared is a problem halved, or whatever the saying is. So there's definitely an element of that as well. Amy, any other reflections from your side and your experiences there?
Yeah, I guess for me, it's been really good in terms of personal development, of getting to the point, sort of being really direct in my communication. So I've had some really good chats with Carlo, because my natural born personality, whilst I'm an extrovert and I'm outgoing and I'll talk to anybody and really enjoy that sort of thing, I sometimes will shy away if there's conflict, and sometimes getting to the point of what I actually need or perhaps want, I can kind of, and what do you need kind of thing. So for me, it's been really great in terms of that. I've had some really good chats with Carlo, like I said. We've had some really great chats with Ollie as well, and group chats within the pit stops as well. So I've been practicing doing that sort of thing. And we've had some really good advances within the business, because we've had to have some awkward conversations and some really frank discussions with people. So obviously that's something that's going to continue to grow as we have more discussions with different, people within the business. But that for me has been really useful from a personal point of view during the pit stops.
And Fiona, anything else that comes to mind when we think about the personal development side for, say, clinicians wanting to take a more entrepreneurial path?
Yeah, absolutely. I think doing the clinical day-to-day work is just so much easier than going into medtech, into a field that, you've never, I've had very minimal exposure to initially. And so it's, been a lot of growth in, just kind of taking on that role, and then just reaching out to as many people that you think, might be able to help along that journey, or, just genuinely having an interest in what other clinicians are getting involved in, to see, what the future of, health tech within Australia looks like. It's honestly been a really, really enjoyable experience, and just so out of the box from the day-to-day clinical life that we're used to living. Yeah.
But the last thing I would think to do is to deliver a baby this afternoon. But Fiona, you'd probably be able to do 3 or 4 of them this afternoon. So I think it's the when going outside of your comfort zone and that unknown piece is always making that first leap out is really difficult. From my own personal experience as well, is really hard, because you don't know what to expect. But if you can do that with other people who are kind of in that same position as you, however you might look to structure that, that's got to be a good thing. Think about then leveraging some of this progress that you've each seen in your businesses and the lessons learnt as well. What can we look forward to seeing from you each in your businesses and the work that you do, and where are some of your priorities? And perhaps, like, what are some of the things you're looking for that you can put the call out to the broader health tech community that they can give a hand with? Whitney, I might start with you.
Good question, Pete. Great question. So for us, it's finishing our IT platform build, which is really going well. The next thing is to onboard as many clinicians around the country and hospitals. Now, whether or not they do medical clearances currently, we really want to create awareness around the need for medical clearance for certain medical conditions to ensure that people are travelling safely. And I'm always concerned that people think that, if I get a medical clearance, I might not be allowed to travel, so I just won't say anything. That isn't what we want. We know that there is, 1 in 604 flights around the world every day that has an in-flight medical event. So if you've got a medical condition, particularly heart, lungs, neurological, etc., you've had recent surgery, you need to have a medical clearance, and you need to make sure that you are fit and safe to travel, because not only could it impact your health, it could impact everybody around you, including, the airline operations, safety of everybody else. So just really food for thought. Really encourage all clinicians out there to get on the platform register so that when that one person in your whole career comes along that needs a medical clearance, you can do it safely, efficiently and quickly, and you'll get a good to go straight away.
Yeah. Love it. And Amy, what about you?
Yeah, so not dissimilar actually to Whitney. We're looking at building out our platform as well. So we started in Bubble and we're sort of at that early stages. So we're looking at, we've applied for a few grants and we're looking at building that out. We're bootstrapping as well. So that's, a little bit of the challenge as well. So building out the platform. We're also looking at getting, securing a few partnerships in terms of for referrals to get as many people through the telehealth and digital platform as we can to really keep utilising, onboarding as many people as we can and keep working to see what we can do to improve the system to see as many people and impact as many people as we can.
Amazing, exciting times. And Fiona, what about you?
Yeah, so Pete, over the course of AUSCEP, we managed to raise a pre-seed fund of $1 million with the University of Melbourne's Genesis Fund, launched Big Salus Anderson Fund and some private investment. And that's allowed us to build the concept demonstrator prototype. And we're very close. We've just done our usability studies. And then after some slight modifications, we'll have our pivotal device ready to take to that final pivotal trial for FDA clearance. So at the minute, we're now looking at that next seed raise and also hoping to get that matched with grant funding in order to get that FDA clearance. And at the minute, we're looking at our commercialization strategy into the US with a colleague who has successfully achieved both sales of a med tech device in obstetrics in the US, as well as they've now sold that med tech device. So that's the next step for us. Is we've now designed that pivotal trial and then obtaining that seed round of funding in order to get FDA clearance.
Yeah, wow. Some great outcomes there, and but also a lot of new challenges ahead, no doubt, that they'll Obviously, I imagine you'll all be interested in continuing to engage with people within the broader health tech ecosystem and those that might be checking out this podcast. So I'd encourage anyone that's checking out this episode that's within the same kind of orbit or looking to continue to add more value in these problems that are being solved, then to reach out, and the details will be in the show notes of this episode. So Whitney, Amy, Fiona, I really appreciate you making the time to have a chat in this episode today. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Pete.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Talking Health Tech. Make sure you like and subscribe and share this episode with someone who might find it valuable. For more information and resources about healthcare innovation, visit talkinghealthtech.com.